in Sufi tradition, they believe that all the type of mistakes, all the errors that we make are due to something that Sheikh alluded to earlier. They say that our problem is unhealthy attachment. Say that we attach ourselves to things and to people that are not healthy for us. So they would say that the very first step in gaining wisdom in detaching yourself from things that are not healthy and people that are not healthy. Furthermore, they would also say that when we have unhealthy attachment, inevitably that leads to some loss of independence. And they say that the greatest dependence is when we become emotionally dependent on somebody or something else. That is the greatest loss of freedom, is when we become emotionally dependent upon a source other than ourselves, or in that case, our Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They would say that is just a recipe for disaster. That will end up us compromising, that will end up us doing things that we shouldn't be doing simply because of that unhealthy attachment. So they would say, and they would begin by saying that if you really want to grow spiritually, because remember that life is so complicated and there are two ways of approaching it simultaneously. You must be approaching it that way, intellectually as well as spiritually. You must be able to handle life intellectually, but you must also be able to live life spiritually. And subhanAllah, you know, the language of the Quran is so beautiful, and it's bad that I'm saying this in the presence of my brother here. But you know, they have that saying, the way you see life determines how you live life. The way you see life determines how you live life. So for example, if you believe that life is a big race, the more important thing to you would be speed. If you believe that life is a big party, then the most important thing to you would be to have fun. And that is why in 53 different places Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about al-hayat al-dunya, this worldly life. Because see, if you want to be engaged with it in a realistic way, you would have to understand what it is that I am being engaged with. So in 53 different places, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about mathalul hayat al-dunya, the parable of this life, the example of this life, and so on. So that the way you see life determines how you live life. But now Allah is saying that, well, this is how you ought to live life. So that intellectually we must be able to conceptualize it. But then spiritually to also engage with it. And that's why they would say, even subhanAllah, when people are speaking about revolutionaries, you know, they said revolutions is not just about being politically there. You have to also be able to conceptualize it intellectually, but you also must be ready for it spiritually as well. And that is why, for example, you know, in the very beginning revelation that the Prophet ﷺ receives, Ya ayyuhal muddathir qum fa'anzir wa rabbaka fakabbir wa thiyabaka fatahir. You know, the idea that's so beautifully expressed by Malcolm X. And Malcolm X was speaking about people needing to change the status quo that was taking place during his time. So he would say that first, we need to wake up. Second, he said, we need to clean up. Very difficult to wake up if you're still high, by the way. And then he would say, so that we can stand up. So he said it is wake up, clean up, and then stand up. So anyways, just going back to the Sufi tradition. So they would say that you have got to begin by taking that first step in acquiring maturity and wisdom, and you must learn how to detach yourself. They had a study saying that our generation nowadays is one of the most impatient generations ever. Saying that we are very, very impatient. And they're asking young people, and they concluded that one of the reasons why we're becoming so impatient, they said that was fast food. People go there and order and, take 2 minutes and, you've got food, you've got chicken, and you've got took a lot of time to cook, and it's becoming really fast food. And they said that we're becoming very impatient. We cannot tolerate waiting whatsoever. So I decided one time that I was going to ask our youth group. Now knowing this, I said, what do you guys hate waiting for? I just wanted to see, they had subhanAllah, a big, huge list. Okay. So I said, what do you guys hate waiting for? Wallahi, these are the answers that I got. I said, I hate it when I call somebody and I go to their answering machine. And their answering machine takes too long to get to the beep part. Wallahi, how long does that take? You've reached this number, we're not available, please leave a message after the tone. And you know how sometimes you think you can skip that part by pressing 1? And then just go, so 1 is an invalid enter. Do I really have to hear this again? I can't believe this. And we just go crazy. Then somebody said, I hate waiting for stuff to download. I'm saying, well, my time, do you remember the 486? If you wanted to just download a picture, it took 2 weeks, people, to download a picture. Okay? So now these kids are just really bothered by the fact that they have to wait for like 10, 15 seconds to do so. And it just gets there. So in any case, just to bring this to what we call, just making it culturally relevant. So the Sufis would say, pick something that you actually feel very attached to and see if you can start giving away. So they would say that to Americanize the example would be, go to a movie, suspense thriller, very, just a lot of mystery in it. And they say that 15 minutes before the end of the movie, walk out. But the challenge is not in walking out. They would say, walk out, but do not leave your heart behind. Because see, if you walk out and you're still thinking to yourself, my God, what just the heck happened, man? I can't believe it. They say, that is not walking out. They say, walk out and do not leave your heart behind. And that is how we start learning healthy and unhealthy attachment. So we've got to start detaching ourselves. But they said, well, the point is not just to detach yourself. They said that the point is that so you detach so that you can have healthy attachment. And then say, well, where is that healthy attachment? Coolness of my eye in the prayers. So it's almost like, making the wise decisions. If you're engaged in this, you know what? That really takes away from our ability to grow spiritually. So now what happens is that the more I do of this, the more enjoyable the spirituality aspect of it comes. Wallahi, subhanallah, there is no beauty, there is no success like the conquering of the self. Wallahi, like the taming of the self, the conquering of the self is one of the most beautiful achievements that anybody can really achieve. And subhanallah, and that is the whole essence of spirituality, that you be in the driver's seat. You know that saying, never give a devil a ride? Because he would want to drive. Okay? Never give him a ride because he would want to drive. Or as they say, the devil never changes. But we do. So the type of company that we keep around, the type of stuff that we are engaged in, subhanAllah, so that is that. So now, the idea of turning off the cell phone as you are in prayers. The point is, look, what are some of the things that I feel are so important, but they are really things? Because remember, the most beautiful things in life are not things. The most beautiful things in life are not things. So they would say that, see if you can detach yourselves from things and see how well you do. Give up your cell phone for a while. I know, wallahi, he said it's crazy. Just me saying it now sounds crazy. Okay? See if you can give up that Xbox before. One time, astaghfirullah azim, I tried to do this. And I tell you what happened. Wallahi, I'm not making this up. Game 7, it was the NBA finals. Game 7. Wallahi, I remember this. Was 3 minutes before the end of the game. I decided it was time to practice some maturity and wisdom. So I said, all right, you guys, inshallah, we'll see you tomorrow. And they said, where are you going? I said, khalas, I don't want to watch the end of the game. I don't have to see it live. I'll probably find out what happened later on. People left the game and they all insisted you're not leaving. We cannot allow you to do something like this. Because to them it was, how could you do something like this? That was very unacceptable. That is just not something that you do. But by the way, live or no live, the score really doesn't change because I left or attended. But the point was, you know what? Are there certain things that I can detach myself from so that, subhanAllah, I am not consumed and occupied by this, so that my spiritual being actually enjoys what is taking place. Also, inshallah, just 2 more points and I'll be done. Very difficult to be engaged in any kind of spiritual growth, I'm sorry, if you eat too much. Wallahi, there is a study out there that speaks about food and mood. It really does. In fact, there is a statement given by Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu where he says, عِبَادَ اللَّهِ لَا تَأْكُلُوا كَثِيرًا. So, servants of Allah, do not eat excessively. فَتَنَامُوا كَثِيرًا. That will cause you to sleep much, either physical sleep or, spiritual sleep. فَتَنْدَمُوا كَثِيرًا. And you will have a lot of regret. We no longer eat because we are hungry. Wallahi, we eat because we are bored. You ever done that? People call you up, say, what are you doing? Nothing. I think I'm going to make me a sandwich. Okay? I've actually know people, subhanallah, they go out to an all-you-can-eat place. And the very first thing that they do when they come home is they open the fridge. Some of you are just saying, Wallahi, that is me. I do that all the time. Okay? But that's just, subhanallah, it is just becoming so unbelievable. See, you do this again, it all just goes back into the whole notion of unhealthy attachment, where we look for food as comfort, where we look for our cell phones as comfort because it gives us an illusion of being busy, where we look for friends or video games or TVs. And remember, these things in of themselves are not necessarily bad things, but the way that we employ them in our lives may be very unhealthy. And it is not just unhealthy, but it is also spiritually damaging to us. Wallahi, some of the friends that we have are spiritually damaging. Some of the habits that we have are spiritually damaging. The amount of food that we eat is spiritually damaging. People like to challenge this, so let me just give you a quick example. Would you say you eat a chicken a month? Would you say you eat a chicken a month? Chicken soup, chicken salad, chicken, right? Okay. Now, if you eat 1 chicken a month, and inshallah you live to be 60, you would have consumed over 700 chickens on your own. The number is a little higher if you're black, but never mind, So that is 1 a month, 12 a year, multiply this by 60, that is over 700 chickens on your own. And some of you can just wait to go and meet your black friends to tell them that joke now, can't you? Yeah. But in any case, wallahi, they had a study as to how much hot dogs are consumed in the US every day. Hot dogs, a day. They would say that if we were to take all the hot dogs and just line them up, like just make one big, huge one line of hot dogs, they said that we would have to start in California, Tijuana, Mexico. And we would go all the way up to Vancouver, Canada. And then we would make a ride and we would end up in Winnipeg, Canada, 1,700 miles. Okay. And then, the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ would speak about, مَا مَلَأَ ابْنُ آدَمَ وِعَاءً شَرًّا مِّن بَطْنِهِ. A human being has never filled a vessel worse than his own stomach. But see, it's not just remember what happens is that, wallahi, nowadays we see people in therapy and it's all about using food for comfort. Or people having shopping therapy, for example. Anybody does that every now and then? Oh, I need to reward myself, and it's good for the soul. And that is all. We would consider this all to be things that are spiritually damaging. So many times, brothers and sisters, spiritually we may not sense and feel our prayers simply because of the things that we are engaged in. The suggestions that were given to us, wallahi, are beautiful suggestions. But you know what is so beautiful about the suggestions that I absolutely loved? As a kid, I tell you this, wallahi, I hated Taraweeh prayers, man. I did not like Taraweeh prayers. One time I had a friend of mine, he was the imam, and his daughter was like 6. And can you imagine a 6-year-old daughter just waiting for her father to be done with Taraweeh, and he was leading the salah. You know what she did? She came in front of people, and she just, and imagine the people are praying. She looked at the people and she said, I hate salah, I hate salah. Okay. I don't blame her. Wallahi, I don't blame her. And the idea of just forcing people into standing in Taraweeh for things that, but what I love about this, just contextualizing that each and every one of us, regardless of where we are with our Arabic, the fact that our Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is so approachable that all I have to do is just to stand and He will listen. Can you imagine this? Just stand there and just say Allahu Akbar and He is listening subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know how nowadays people speak about self-esteem and the need to have good self-esteem and that self-esteem and do all the things that you will get your self-esteem. Wallahi, ikhwana, I tell you this. If our sense of self-worth or our sense of self-esteem comes from any other source other than our relationship with Allah, we are in trouble. Wallahi, we are in trouble. Wallahi, we are in trouble. I love that hadith. The hadith says that if you make a mention of Allah, Allah is going to make a mention of you. If you make a mention of Allah in an assembly, Allah will make a mention of you in a better assembly than the one that you made a mention in Him. And then He said, and if you make a mention of Allah in yourself, Allah will make a mention of you in Himself. Now, if that does not pick up our self-esteem, man, we are in trouble. This La ilaha illallah. Allah has been thinking about me, man. And can you imagine that statement? Said that make a mention of Allah in yourself, and Allah will make a mention of you in Himself. Now that is healthy self-esteem. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us this, Ya Rabbil Alameen. هذا والله أعلم صلى الله على سيدنا محمد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.